Have you ever looked at a college course title and wondered, what do they really teach in there? What are the skills you actually walk away with? Well, today we're going to pull back the curtain. We're deconstructing a course called Industrial Management, and we're using a real syllabus as our guide to see what it really takes to manage in today's industrial world.
So let's get right to it. What is this class all about? Is it about running a giant factory, juggling supply chains, or is there something more to it? We're going to dive into the syllabus to get the real story.
Okay, here's the official definition right from the course itself. It's about studying the systems, the norms, and the practices in an industrial setting. Think of it less like some dusty old theory and more like learning the actual playbook, the unwritten rules of how things get made and managed in the real world. To really wrap our heads around this, we're going to break it down just like a student in the class would. First, we'll look at the big picture goals. Then, we'll get into the nitty-gritty of managing people. After that, we'll see how you navigate the legal maze, learn how to turn an idea into a real project, and finally, check out how they even know if you've learned any of it. Sound good? Let's go.
First things first, what's the end game here? What is a student who aces this course expected to be able to actually do? Well, the syllabus lays out 3 main skills. And there you have it. These are the 3 pillars holding the whole thing up. First, you've got to master the art of management. Second, you need to understand the laws of the land you're operating in. And third, you have to learn how to tell if a new idea is a potential gold mine or just a money pit. It's this mix of people, rules, and money that really defines a great industrial manager. All right, let's dig into that first core area. This is all about the fundamentals, the absolute bedrock of what it means to be a manager. Everything else in the course is built right on top of this.
So this is basically the classic manager's playbook. It's a 5-step loop that works just about anywhere. You start by planning out your strategy. Then you organize all the resources you're going to need. Next up, you bring in the right team through staffing. From there, you lead them toward the goal, and finally, you control the whole process to make sure everything stays on track. Simple, right?
But hey, managing isn't just about a process. It's really about people. So this course gives students a whole toolkit for that. We're talking everything from recruiting the right person and training them up to figuring out how to motivate them with the right incentives and, of course, evaluating their performance fairly.
And this is the key takeaway right here. It's not just about memorizing definitions. The syllabus makes it crystal clear. The goal is to learn how to motivate and lead people more effectively. This is all about building actual, real-world leadership skills.
Okay, so let's move on to that next pillar. See, a great manager has to be a great leader, for sure, but they also have to know the rules of the game. And that means you've got to know the law.
Now this is where things get really interesting. The course doesn't just teach the local stuff, like the Bangladesh Labor Act. It makes students compare those rules to big, international standards from organizations like the ILO. That means you're forced to think globally about huge issues like human rights and child labor, even if you're managing locally. It just gives you a much bigger perspective. And we're not talking about some abstract legal theory here. The course dives right into the details that affect every single employee. Stuff like how many hours can they work, what holidays do they get, how are wages regulated, and what are the proper steps for termination. This is the kind of knowledge that protects both the employee and the company.
So, you can manage people and you know the law. Awesome. But how does a company actually grow? Well, that brings us to the third core skill, taking a concept and turning it into a real, profitable project. This shows us that good projects aren't just happy accidents, They have to go through this super rigorous funnel. It starts with identifying maybe a dozen ideas just to find one good one. Then, that idea gets formulated into a solid plan. Next, the feasibility study asks that really tough question: can we actually do this? And only if the answer is yes, does it face the final boss, the economic evaluation.
So how do you figure out the economics? Well, you use this financial toolkit. Students learn to calculate things like the payback period. Basically, how fast will you make your money back? They also use more advanced tools like net present value, which tells you what a project's future profits are worth in today's money. Believe me, these aren't just terms for an exam. They're the real calculations that decide if a multi-million-dollar idea gets a green light.
Okay, so we've seen what's taught: managing people, navigating laws, and lodging projects. But how does the university make sure students have actually, learned all this? Let's take a look at the grading. A quick look at this chart shows a pretty heavy emphasis on exams. They make up a whopping 65% of the grade. So yeah, that tells you a deep understanding of the theory is absolutely non-negotiable. But it's also balanced out with tests, assignments, and presentations to make sure you can apply it all. They even give you points for attendance, which just reinforces how important it is to stay engaged. But check this out. It's not just about what you know. It's about how you think. The syllabus actually breaks down how they grade you based on different thinking skills. So they're not just testing if you can remember or understand facts. They're pushing you to apply, to analyze, and even to create new solutions, which are, the highest levels of thinking.
So when you boil it all down, that's really what industrial management is. It's this incredible intersection of three different worlds: the art of leading people, the science of analyzing projects, and the discipline of following the rules. And mastering all three is what makes a manager truly effective.
And that leaves us with one final question for you. If you were stepping into that manager role tomorrow, and you had a people problem, a huge new project, and a tricky legal issue all land on your desk at once, which one would you tackle first? The people, the project, or the rules? It's something to think about.